so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
Good evening, Hoosier fans. We are back with another episode of After the Dust Settles. Joining me tonight again is Nate Comp. Nate, you need to score more than the other team to win. It turns out scoring 66 more than the other team not only gets you a win, it gets you a coach fired. So Hoosiers route, Hoosiers dominate, Hoosiers finish 11-1 in the snow. Pretty damn sweet to get the bucket back.
The bucket back.
Obviously, lots to talk about. We'll get into it all, but that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, what a scene it was in Bloomington. I think we kind of came into the game worried maybe the crowd wouldn't show up. They did in numbers, which was awesome. It was great to see again that place was filled, even with the snow, even with the cold. It was filled to the brim, and they were ready to go and loud from the very beginning, and really created that home field atmosphere that we've wanted and we've seen for most of this season, ever since Signetti called us out. And yeah, Purdue is not a good football team, and I guess I could say was not a good football team because their season's now over, and they're looking for a new head coach. But we had questions about how solid of a football team we were, and whenever you're going into a rivalry game, that's a hard thing to do. You feel like you're going to get the team's best, even if they're not the best team, and if that was Purdue's best, then we are a lot better than them, because 66-0 is crazy.
Common opponent wise, Notre Dame gave up a touchdown. Also put up 66, but they won 66-7. I don't know. We'll get into tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday night right now. Browns just scored actually a pretty sweet touchdown right before halftime there. But we're recording this on Monday. This time tomorrow, we'll know where IU slots in the penultimate college football rankings before the bracket comes out after conference championship week. So we'll see. In my head, going into the game, I said the spread was between where you looked, like 28 and 31, something like that. I basically said cover and leave no doubt. Not only did they cover, they kind of doubled up the spread. The Hoosiers decided to take it in their own hands. They covered the total for the game by themselves. Not a big gambler myself, but that's kind of what Vegas and national people think of you. They thought you were 4 touchdowns better. And we said you got to leave no doubt heading into these last rankings. Obviously, IU's not going to be playing this upcoming weekend. It'll be Oregon and Penn State and Indy.
Although there was a moment there that
there
I was
was
like,
yeah.
I was down in Indy for Thanksgiving, and I was like, well, maybe I'm going to be back down here again in 7 days to see a Big Ten championship. But
yeah, Buckeyes obviously lost, and then Penn State in that middle window decided to take the opening kickoff fumble on their first play. And then Minnesota scored on a 1-play drive. So 13 seconds into the game, I mean, I was booking a hotel to Indy down there. But yeah, I think regardless of in or not in the Big Ten championship game, I think IU played themselves off of the bubble. Whether or not we host a game in the first round, I would say right now, looking at the rankings, probably not super likely. We'll see what happens after conference championship weekend. But I think IU has played itself off the bubble, which is great. And I don't want to get too wrapped up in the playoff stuff. We'll get to that at the end because there was a lot to cover in this game. Maybe the most surprising thing, I guess, Weather, you definitely have to give him a pass. But we have our first missed kick of the season. Nico Radicic finally misses a field goal. That came actually after Rourke took a bad sack early in the game. knocked us kind of on the edge with the elements. But other than that, it was smooth sailing. I think after the Ohio State game, Sig said, let's just not punt. Let's hand or snap it to James Carpenter. So we'll see if that's a wrinkle going forward on every punt. But yeah, we wanted the offense. I guess we'll start there. No, I'm bouncing all over the place here, but offense, we wanted to see the offense get back on track. And we said last week, Nate, regardless of obviously a stark difference in level of competition going from Columbus to Purdue this week. But you want to see the offense get in a rhythm. And I thought they definitely did that. And Rourke looked really sharp. I don't think the cold bothered him with that thumb too much. You saw him really spinning it. And that was, for me, a real positive.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think I saw any wrapping kind of thing. We've kind of been monitoring his thumb for weeks now.
Right.
Of the very first week he came back, he had that sick kind of half glove situation he had going on. And then it felt like maybe he was down to just a little bit of wrapping, maybe some tape on the end. And it seemed like yesterday he was down to just nothing. So I think that's a huge sign, huge positive sign. He was spinning it really well. First quarter, actually, if you really want to nitpick, I mean, we only scored 7 in the first quarter, but scored 59 in the final 45 minutes of the game. So that's
Is that
definitely
good?
yeah, definitely positive. But yeah, what Rourke ended 23 of 31, almost 350 yards, 6 touchdowns. Believe that tied the record for most touchdown passes in a single game. So clearly good there. And then he was once again recognized for his performance by the Big Ten this week. He got his third Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week honors. That now puts him down. He is only one behind Anthony Thompson, who won 4. That's the most ever for an Indiana football player in a season. So yeah, he made a big statement, came back in a huge way, and looked back to his normal self of reading the read option correctly. Had better blocking this week, so he had the time to go through his progressions. And yeah, he feasted on that Purdue defense.
Yeah, no doubt. And we talked in the season preview podcast, and I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, how I have wanted to go back and kind of live listen and almost commentate on our takes from the season preview pods. Maybe we'll do that in the bye week here, but because I think it's gone better, obviously, than any of us predicted or we could have imagined, honestly. But we talked about Curtis Rourke before the season, and we knew super talented, super experienced, coming off an injury. He didn't look the same last year that he kind of did when he won MAC Player of the Year. And I mean, he was better than you could have hoped for. And I'm kind of looking at some of the stats today. I'm sorting here by conference games. So obviously most of the guys at the top here have played 9. Rourke obviously missed the Washington game. He ends up on the season in 8 games played in conference play only. 156 for 226, which is 69% flat. Nice. For 2,121 passing yards, 23 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. And if you remember, he threw 2 on 2 consecutive passes against Maryland. 9.4 yards per attempt, 265 yards a game, and the highest passer rating in the conference at 177.9. He actually finished
highest passer rating in the country, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
With all games considered, he actually finished as the highest graded passer rating wise in the entire country. So if you told me that would have happened before the season, I think I probably would have recalibrated my expectations a little bit. I think we were a little bit more confident in the offense coming into the season than we were the defense. But both sides of the ball, I think, have really kind of stepped up and held their own when they needed to. But Curtis Rourke was just absolutely outstanding this season. He finishes basically 200 yards behind Dylan Gabriel in passing yards, and Gabriel had an extra conference game there. So just outstanding. I guess I'll go all games here because the numbers are even better. He's 2,860 passing yards, just over 72% completions, 27 touchdowns, 8 picks. Yeah, I mean, just an outstanding season overall from QB1 there. But I thought he played probably one of his best games of the season. UCLA, he was fantastic. But yeah, really, really sharp way to end the regular season. 6 touchdowns, no picks. Pretty much every ball was a good ball, no real dangerous throws. Got a lot of guys involved. It was good to see Miles Cross get back into the action. Pretty much the only ball he missed was that deep one to Kobe.
Yeah.
But looked really sharp, moved around well. And after the O line kind of corrected those blitzes on the first 2 drives, it was all good from there.
Yeah. I mean, you really can't ask for much more from the offense. I think we should give a shout out to Surratt for sure for his performance. Definitely one of Rourke's favorite targets this whole season, but especially in the bucket game this past weekend, set the record for an Indiana receiver for most receiving yards, past James Hardy, rest in peace. But yeah, I mean he was truly Waffle House the whole game, and just kind of showed his connection that he had with Rourke. I think especially on his 84-yard touchdown
Yeah.
reception of just being aware of what's going on in the backfield and saying screw it to my route and just completely turning course, left the Purdue defender in the dust, and there was no safety help behind him. So Rourke really, that was probably one of his easier passes, even though it was probably the biggest highlight. Just a very easy pass, and Surratt took it the rest of the way, and we heard Tim Brando's voice crack as, "Oh Elijah," as he runs it, as he runs into the end zone.
Yeah, that was a cool play. It just looked so cool in the snow. Everything looked so cool,
Yeah,
and it's interesting. Obviously, the campuses are really close together. Purdue's played in the cold. They've practiced in the cold. That most of the guys have probably played in snow before. It was just wild to me how better prepared IU looked to just have their footing and hold on to the ball and just. And those are things good teams do and bad teams do, but come out of halftime if you're Purdue, you drop the mesh on the first handoff, you fumble 2 more times in the second half. Cards just kind of flinging the ball around. It just guys slipping everywhere. It just was really really interesting that IU looked that much better at just being prepared and ready to handle the snow than Purdue did.
yeah.
Uh,
There were times when I wanted to bash Purdue, kind of, and then I would remind myself like, oh, well, they are, it is a snow game. Like those are not the easiest conditions to play in. And then I would kind of second guess myself and like, we're playing in these too, and we look completely dominant, and we don't even seem to notice that there's ice all over this field.
yeah, it was super interesting. I'm trying to find. We had a bunch of good stats going in the chat throughout the game on Saturday, but looking at stats now, Devin Mockabee, a guy who's given IU trouble the last couple of years, 14 carries for 32 yards. He had actually just 21 yards of net rushes, averaged 1.5 yards per carry. Ryan Brown, Purdue's backup quarterback, redshirt freshman, 7 carries for 10 yards. So net yards minus 10, which obviously some sacks in there. But IU, I think they gave up 13 net rushing yards. So James Carpenter outrushed them. Purdue gained 46 on the ground. That obviously that's a big key, and Purdue was severely outmanned, outschemed in this game, and we knew that. But the way you keep these games close and you give the committee a reason to knock you or try to keep you out of the playoff is by letting Purdue just run the ball, shorten the game, and gash you on the ground a little bit. That's something that IU teams in the past have really struggled with. You could tell that they were not going to let that happen. It was going to be can Hudson Card string together multiple good throws and multiple good drives to try to keep it a competitive game. Answer is obviously no, as he got benched at halftime for Ryan Brown. But yeah, IU came out on a mission again, shut down the running game, which is something they've done all season long. I think they actually graded out, or yardage wise, were the best run defense in the whole country now through 12 games on a per game basis. That's the stat I'm trying to find. But
Yeah, and
uh,
I'm sure we'll talk about this at the end, but I mentioned it last week when we did our After the Dust pod. It's so nice to have something that you can hang your hat on defensively and just say like we're going to be able to stop the run. Even in the games against Michigan, the game against Ohio State, it felt like our run defense was something that we could hang our hat on and rely on, and that's something you're just absolutely going to need when we're going into wherever we're headed, of Georgia, Penn State, Notre Dame, wherever. That is something that is going to be so huge down the stretch as we look into the postseason. To be able to be like, yeah, but I think we can stop their run game. It'll just come down to the quarterback play.
Yeah. Yeah. And CJ West had another great game, something we kind of talked about. When you got him late in that spring window, at the time kind of somewhat surprising, but we knew we needed another guy. He's honestly been, if not the best player on defense, one of the best players on defense, probably one of the most consistent players on defense all season long. Had a monster season. Aiden Fisher only had 6 tackles yesterday, or on Saturday, kind of just due to the nature of the game. He finishes third in the conference with 108 tackles, which is pretty remarkable. Again, this was a guy that came from James Madison, and all of the reversible jacket basketball Notre Dame football fans were telling us that this guy couldn't play in the Big Ten, wouldn't last, was not a good pickup, and pretty much ends up as your captain on defense and finishes third in the conference in tackles after playing in the Sun Belt a year ago. So remarkable season for him. Jalen Walker, monster game on defense.
We have to talk about Jalen Walker.
I mean, he was doing his signature, walk thing. Had the sweet pick, lighting guys up, running all over the field. Can't believe he didn't get tossed for that phantom targeting, but
I was surprised there. But
season for him on senior day.
I think he clocked at 22-ish miles an hour. I'm gonna say this offseason. I think he was on the freaks list because of it to start the year, and I mean they're playing on ice on Saturday night, and it looked like 23 miles an hour. Like that dude was flying all over the field. Seemed like every single time, like, oh, Purdue put the ball on the turf again. Oh, it was Jalen Walker that forced it. Oh, we got an interception. Oh, it was Jalen Walker making a insane catch to be able to pull it off. I mean, that was he played incredibly in that game.
Yeah, monster. He had 4 tackles for loss, forced a fumble, and had that sweet one-handed, one knee, whatever you want to call it, just awesome interception in the snow, which looked really cool. Awesome season for him. Just a great way to step in right alongside Aiden Fisher, and really put together a monster season and his senior season. So great for him. Mikhail Kamara had just a half sack, so I think I actually put out erroneous tweet during the game. They only gave him half sack, not a full sack. So he actually finished tied for second in the conference with 10 total sacks, a half sack behind. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, from Oregon, Mateo Uigalele.
Yeah. DJ's brother.
10.5 sacks. Kamara and Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter will probably be a top 10 pick in the draft. He had 10 sacks as well. So great season from him. Another guy, again, that people said wouldn't be able to play in the Big Ten. So yeah, defense played really well. Jamari Sharp, I thought, got tested on a couple reps. He was pretty good in the run game. Obviously, he filled in for Jameer Johnson, who was out with an injury. Honestly, we didn't hear a ton on that, so I'll be curious to hear more about that during the week. But yeah, Sharp did a pretty good job stepping in for Johnson as well on Saturday. But
recovered a fumble too, I believe.
He did have that fumble recovery. I thought Bryson Bonds on senior day, it was really cool. He had that sweet one-handed pick at the end of the game, so that was great for him. He's seen a lot of Indiana football and been on a lot of bad teams and played in a lot of bad games. So he's been a guy that's seen his snaps on defense kind of decrease, but seemingly has embraced his role as an ace special teamer and kind of good locker room leader.
That's a dude that's continued to bring it when he does see his opportunities. A guy that, I don't know, I feel like I have a soft spot for, just because of that loyalty that you mentioned. And yeah, I mean, he's not always on the field on defense, but he's making an impact on special teams. And yeah, it's sweet to see that one-handed interception against Purdue in his senior night. He made a great stop, I'm thinking, back in the Washington game, shutting down a 4th down stop, I believe. So yeah, when he's getting in there, he's been making plays, and that's all you can ask for from those depth pieces, and especially a guy that very easily could have gone somewhere else and played at a smaller school and seen the field a lot. But I love that he stuck around and continued to make an impact when he was on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Others, yeah, Walker also had a sack and a half. Elijah Hardy, who just seems to just be around the ball and make plays. We've kind of said that all season when he's been in at this. I mean, he started against Ohio State to open that game. I think he started last night or on Saturday. I keep saying last night, on Saturday to open the game. Um, that's a guy we thought was a total like depth throw in who just has kept himself on the field and has played his way into the rotation. So he'll be a fun one to watch develop. He had a forced fumble as well. Um, James Carpenter, quiet game, honestly, for him, kind of just controlled the middle.
Better on offense than
Yeah, he's
defense.
just an offensive weapon. So teams
Yeah,
are going to have to game plan for him being explosive with the ball in his hands now. So
he was. I mean, he had some quick feet there. I was like, dang, who is that? And I saw it was 99.
yeah,
And for a second, I was like, do we have another 99? That's
yeah.
not James Carpenter? No, he
I
was he
mean,
was flying.
let's talk about that. It's that's what would have happened to us in prior years. I felt like, especially 2 years ago or 3 years ago, like Purdue just clowned on you, and they've clowned on you the last couple of years. Took you 4 years to get the bucket back, um, but you're up 38-0 in a game. At that point, it looked like Purdue had totally given up. Like body language was terrible, just no emotion, no energy, nothing. Ryan Walters was totally dead on the sideline. Um, and Sig on a 4th and 6, I think it was, says, "You know what? Hold my beer," and he snaps it. He snaps it to his locker room leader, defensive tackle, and James Carpenter rumbles for what he rumbled like 18 yards or something.
Yeah.
Um, Felt longer than that, but yeah, that was pretty sweet. But I mean, Nate, we talked about not leaving anything up to the committee and really, really imposing your will. And I think that was kind of the point where you said, all right, like he's not playing with his food. Like this is
No,
gonna be ugly.
he was taking the kill shot, and I also think, I mean, I saw someone say on Twitter today it's probably a little bit of throwing something on tape. We haven't done that, and if there are any inefficiencies in our punt game that we haven't necessarily noticed. I mean, we saw special teams definitely play an impact in the Ohio State game, but I don't think that was like blocking inefficiencies or anything. That was just drop snap and then a poor punt. But if there is something there that someone is scouting against us, it is nice to at least throw something onto the tape that says, "Hey, you're not going to bring all 10 guys here and come block this punt. Like you're going to have to also game plan for we have the potential to sneak one by you." So if we're at the 45-yard line and you're kind of like, oh, interesting, they're deciding to punt here, you have to consider maybe they're running a fake. Let's not go all out here. And probably smart also could just be, it's 38-0, let's run it up on our rival. I said Purdue sucks, and they do.
Yeah, that was evident definitely on Saturday. All right, switching. We kind of started with the offense. Let's close quickly with the offense. Not a ton in the running game. I think effective when they needed it to be. Kalen Black had some nice carries at the end there. Elijah Green, actually, fun fact: every game he has got a carry in. IU has one. There's a little sabermetrics for you there.
Human victory cigar kind of
Yes,
situation.
yeah, the closer, Elijah, the
Yeah,
closer Green.
Tim Priller-esque.
Yeah, the guy, the king. Um, yeah, Ellison, Lawton, one touchdown each, so they both finished the season with 10 plus touchdowns, which is really cool. And honestly, I think helps you. And we'll touch on it a little bit at the end. I want to leave it because it's going to be a busy week, and with IU not playing next week, we'll have a lot to talk about. But portal's about to open. I think having two running backs score 10 touchdowns in the same season definitely is going to help you as you go out and probably look to at least bring in probably at least one guy. But we'll see what they do there. Receivers, Rourke obviously had 6 touchdown passes, 5 different guys caught a touchdown. Surratt had 2 to go along with 165 yards. Keyshawn Williams, was nice to see him kind of get back into the scoring column. He had not scored since the Northwestern game. So we talked about him kind of all season. He would go quiet, have some big games, go quiet, have some big games. So 5 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. I think he had a couple runs as well that were pretty nice on some of that sweep action. Yeah, 2 carries for 27 yards. So
Yeah,
was
we
good to
saw
see him get going.
We saw early on in that first quarter, it felt like, they got us off the field on our very first offensive possession. And I felt like that second offensive possession, we kind of saw some creativity from
Hmm.
Shanahan saying like, all
Hmm.
right, let's get a little bit of a rhythm here. So it was a little bit of the run game, a little bit of some trickeration, I guess. I think Rourke had kind of the behind the shoulder flick to
Yeah,
Keyshawn that went
that's pretty
around the
saucy.
edge.
Yeah,
So
pretty sweet.
yeah, just showing putting some stuff on tape, and also I think just after 6 quarters, almost seven if you can count the first quarter of this game,
Hmm.
of maybe playing offense with your butt clenched a little bit. It was nice to say like, all right guys, like take a deep breath. Here's some fun plays. Let's get the offense moving, and yeah, so good incorporation there.
Yeah, and Devin Gardner on the broadcast don't normally like, but I think being or winning a game 66-0, I think makes you like the broadcast a little bit more. But he was pretty good. He kept harping on what they said during the whole broadcast, which was the C word on offense, which was confidence. And that was kind of what we talked about last week, Nate, heading into this game, was regardless of the opponent, and the schedule shook out really nicely here in a really, really, really down year for Purdue, for IU to end the season with them, get back on track, build some confidence heading into hopefully, what is a little run here. Um, Really worked out nicely. But yeah, I think you kind of nailed it there. You saw some of the creativity on offense. You saw Rourke out of the pocket a little bit. You saw quick throws. You saw the RPO game get back on track. You saw those jet sweeps and those tosses that had really worked well come back up on the tape. Um, and obviously, some of the field position and just circumstances of the game in Columbus, you didn't have the whole playbook at your disposal, especially in that first half when it was raining a little bit. Um, but it really looked like they opened it wide up or wide open on Saturday. And it's a lot to game plan for when you throw that much different stuff, I guess, on tape. But it was nice to see kind of the UCLA esque offense that seemed to be just could do no wrong, or the Michigan State offense, which could do no wrong, come back onto the field for IU.
Yeah, even if it was a little bit of fool's gold because you're going against the opponent, I do think it's just huge to, if you've missed your last 7 threes playing the pickup game,
Mhm.
it's good to see one go in and remember that you can hit a three and you can keep things going. So definitely we're able to do that against Purdue.
I can't, but maybe you can. That's the Indiana difference right there. Yeah, I guess just overall, really, really, really solid game. Not much to nitpick on, so I'm not even gonna. I guess big picture here, and we'll probably do a regular season in review. And I keep saying we'll do a lot of stuff during the bye week. I think we're going to, just because there's going to be just a lot actually to talk about with signing day coming up this week. Um, College football rankings on Tuesday. Portal is going to be wide open and roaring. We've already seen some portal activity,
Oh
some
yeah,
activity tonight.
it's time to start tracking who Sig
The
is following
who's
on Twitter.
who's following who, where are the
Yeah,
private jets going, who's liking whose posts on Instagram.
yeah.
It's time. It's time for college
Uh-oh,
football
blah
to really.
blah blah blah. Unfollowed his coach on
That's right.
Instagram. What's
Yeah.
that mean? Yeah.
It's about time.
God,
It's
it's
about
good.
to start ramping up again. So we're gonna have lots to talk about. We'll have like portal wish lists and recaps and reactions, all that good stuff. But yeah, lots to cover, and we'll talk about the whole regular season before we get into the postseason, because it is something that I think we need to appreciate and remember and cherish fondly. Indiana football just finished a college football season in the year 2024 in an expanded 18-team Big Ten that saw Oregon go 9-0 in conference play. IU finished 11-1 and 8-1 in the Big Ten to finish second in the league, and they were picked 17th in the preseason by just about everybody. That composite, like media coaches Big Ten poll, had IU literally just above 18th. Um, and Sig talked about that at his press conference in Indy. And while he didn't end up playing in Indy like he predicted, just about everything else he said came true. But I mean,
Yeah,
11-1, 8-1. What a run!
yeah. I think it's so easy to just look back literally a year ago at what we were doing at this point. And I mean, we had Allen had already been fired. We had already hired Sig. We were hearing all these confident statements, and he was at that point. He was still changing the mindset not only of the entire fan base, but like of us. I mean, we have seen the new guy come in time after time and promise all these things and not necessarily be able to deliver. And I mean, we've been trying to get this kind of investment. We've been, I think a year ago, we were probably like, if we continue to see these changes in all the conferences and if they want to create some super league, all this kind of stuff, like, is Indiana going to be a part of the Big Ten moving forward? Or are they going to say, like, oh, this is definitely a school we can cut? And now it's a team that finished tied for second in the Big Ten and almost was in the Big Ten championship game in year one under Signetti. So it's it's awesome to see. It's crazy how quickly like our mindset has shifted, even looking forward to next year and kind of stuff. Like, well, we're gonna go to a bowl. Like suddenly we have college football playoff expectations and New Year's Six Bowl expectations, all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot can change in 365 days, and it's awesome what we've seen.
Yeah, no doubt. And I tweeted it out kind of in the midst of everybody liking all the cigar content, the Mike Cage content, and all the just snow content, all the fan videos. It's just really, 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 really awesome to see. And it made me just so proud and so happy to see all of that on Saturday. But I tweeted out, I think what got lost a little bit, and as again, another thing that we kind of talked about in our preseason pod, was you went 8-0 at home, and you had three non-conference games. Of course, like I love how we scheduled this year. I have no complaints with how we scheduled our non-conference this year. To all the Louisville fans that are probably listening and raging and sweating right now, Seg didn't buy
We do
his
not
way.
care.
Yeah, I don't care. First of all, you probably would have hurt our strength of schedule anyway. Not really, but yeah, Sig didn't buy out of that game. I don't care either. Like to your point, Nate. But yeah, you went 8-0 at home, and that is how you build like the muscle memory of getting up and going to games and wanting to go to games. That's how you get the freshmen and the sophomores going to games. That's how you get the sororities and the frats going to games. That's how you get people leaving the tailgates to go in the stadium. And we saw it game after game. The stands were full, like at kick, which is something we've never seen. We've seen people trickle in. We've seen students come in late. Like if you were in the student section, which is general admission, and you were not there a half hour before the game started, you were not getting a good seat. And the view is not obstructed at Memorial. There's not really a bad seat in the stadium. But if you were not at the game early, you were going to wait and miss opening kickoff. You were not going to get your first beer in time for kickoff. You were not going to get the best seat, that kind of stuff. And it's, I think, a small thing in the grand scheme of an 11-1 season, but that is how you kind of make people believe and want to come to games and want to buy season tickets. I've heard multiple stories already of people that are like, well, I'm a football fan now. Like I already put my deposit in. I'm going to try to go to a couple games next year. Like that is how you do it. You make people want to go to the game.
Yeah, we were there, when we were students, and uh, we were the ones that were there 90 minutes early as soon as the gates opened, and we were in the front rows and kind of and stuff like that. But the rows behind us, you could show up 15 minutes before kick, and you would only be a few rows behind us, and uh, and we would talk to friends, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I didn't even go into the game. I tailgated it, but I didn't go watch." And like there are so many instances I remember of just feeling like if we had a little bit more of that home field advantage, like this Penn State game, and I think my senior year, might have been my junior year, of we recovered an onside kick down like 5 in the fourth quarter, and I turned behind me and there's like 3 rows of students there, and you're like, we're playing Penn State, like we got this opportunity to do something completely special, and there was no one there to support it, and that is completely flipped. You see all these stories now of just like, I was having the best experience of my life being in Memorial Stadium this year, and the more stories you can hear of that, the more it spreads, the more it becomes a culture, and the more it becomes, it's 45 minutes before the game, it's an hour before the game, I'm headed in, it's time to go support these boys, and we're going to see something awesome.
Yep. Pretty sweet. And I guess my thought or message, not that people are listening to me for a rallying cry here, but this was not, we did not like win a raffle or win the lottery for this season to happen, right? Like this was earned by the university, the administration, the staff, the players, all the coaches, the fan, like this was earned. So regardless of what national pundits or the voters or other teams or other coaches, whatever anyone wants to say about this season, they cannot take away that you went 8-0 at home. They cannot take away that you went 11-1. And if you do not, you can't get complacent. If you are not still invested, if you are not still buying tickets and showing up and going on road trips and buying jerseys and donating to NIL, as soon as we saw this happen in 1 year, it can go just as quickly the other way and probably less time than it takes to build up. So you have to continue to be interested and invested and excited about Indiana football, because if you're not, this little moment or one season we had could be just like a shooting star and gone as quickly as we saw it and enjoyed it. Could be totally different a year from now. So you have to like continue to be interested and excited about IUFB, which I think a pretty damn good base has been laid here, but you have to keep doing it because you see it all the time. People get complacent or they get used to being good, or like look at Ohio State. They're used to winning 11 and 12 games or whatever every season. And now that they go 10-2, and I know they lost to their rival, whatever, but blow it up. The world's falling, fire everybody, close the school. Like you have to not be complacent. You cannot get complacent. IU's just had their best regular season in the entire history of the program. You have to continue to be interested and invest in IU football.
Yeah, I also hope we see that going into this postseason. I was given the speech earlier this weekend to some of my family members of like, oh, so wherever we end up in the playoff, are you going to want to go? And like, does it? How much are we willing to spend? All this kind of stuff. And I kind of got to the point of just like, I'm sure there were plenty of people, and I've heard stories of people in 1967 that said, "Oh, Indiana's headed to the Rose Bowl. I'll go to the next one." And they waited 57 years. And I don't plan on waiting 57 years to, go to our next college football playoff, but I'm sure the people in 1967 also didn't plan on doing this. So continue to support, continue to dump NIL money, take it away from the basketball program. Nobody wants to pay them right now anyways, right? After the Bahamas week. So yeah, just keep feeding it to the football program, just like Mitchell Page was saying on Twitter this week. It's the only good
I
thing
think it's
about
great.
IU
Yeah.
basketball being bad. It's like, hey, maybe some of that money will head across the street this time.
That's fine with me. You know me. That's more than fine with me. Yeah, but and again, we'll see. You're going to have a huge opportunity to make a massive statement in wherever you end up in the playoff, whether that's in Bloomington, whether that's in Athens, Georgia, whether that's in South Bend, wherever that ends up being. You're going to have a huge opportunity. Could be back in the horseshoe to make a huge statement and win a game in the college football playoff. And like I said a couple minutes ago, like this is not like you want a raffle to have like be a pro for the day experience, or you won brickyard passes at the Indy 500. Like you won 11 football games in the Big Ten, and you earned the right to be seated in the college football playoff in the first year of the 12-team playoff. So like I just like I don't want anyone to be like, oh well, great year, la da 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 da. Like, no, you earned your way into this thing. Like, we should have every expectation, maybe not win the whole thing, but why can't we win a game? Why can't we win 2 games? Like, if Georgia Tech can take Georgia to 8 overtimes in Athens against the officials as well, like, why can't Indiana do that? Like, it just, and it's obviously going to be a massive test and a massive challenge, whoever we play. But man, it just, what a run and what an
Yeah.
opportunity the team has now to do something even greater than we just saw for the last 5 months.
And I think we know that the team's mentality will 100% be that. They will be going in not expecting to be like, we're not the cute story. We're going in on a business trip. We're going in. Sig will have these boys ready to go in and potentially make a run in the college football playoff. That's what he plans to do.
Yeah, and he got asked in the post game presser after Purdue about. I mean, there weren't a ton of Purdue questions, but he got asked about what they kind of learned coming out of that Ohio State game, and he said obviously really upset with the way they played, but he thinks they came out stronger and a better team because of how poorly, honestly, they performed and played in that game. So IU, if they want to win a game in the playoff, and again, we'll see where they slot in the rankings, which will be pretty close to final come Tuesday night here. They're going to have to play their best game of the season, and they've played a lot of good games and they've had a lot of good performances. But to beat a top 8 or whatever team in the country on the road that they're going to be extremely fired up and ready to play in, you're going to have to play your best game. Definitely that you've played this season, maybe that you've played ever as a history of a football
Of a
program.
football
But
program.
right, yeah, but yeah, that's my big thing is like this was not oh, you won a free trip to Disney or oh, you won the raffle at the grocery store. Like no, IU won 11 games where they are keeping score and they're on national television with big noon kickoff twice and game day. You earned your way to be here. And I don't want whatever happens in the playoff or whatever. I don't want that to diminish what IU has done from August 31st until November 30th here, which has been outstanding.
Yeah. Where do we want to talk playoff a little bit? Where do you think we're headed? What I know we'll definitely have a clearer picture of this come 24 hours from now, but I mean I think at this point 2 weeks or so ago after last week we kind of had a little bit of a question of will we be in? It feels like at this point that question is
Mm-hmm.
pretty put to bed. It would
Yes.
really shock me to see us outside of that 12 team field, whether that be because of what happened elsewhere or just the earned part that you've been going through these past few minutes. We deserve a spot in, and I fully expect to see our name in there. Um, I think I'm at the point right now. I expect to be going on the road. I think
Mm-hmm. I agree.
most of the projections say, maybe give us a 40-ish% chance of hosting, and I kind of think that's high. Um, I could see us at Notre Dame. I could see us at Georgia. I could see us at Penn State. Those feel like the three most common that I've seen. I've seen a few stragglers say maybe at Tennessee. Um, yeah, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think what we still don't know, and we won't even have this question answered on Tuesday, so we'll have to wait for the final rankings when we have a real bracket, is how they're going to value these conference championship games. And we've heard a lot of people say, oh, they're not going to punish teams if they lose. They will probably reward teams if they win. But for the most part, if you're in the conference championship game, unless you're needing an auto bid for winning your league to get in, probably don't expect too much movement. So I think for IU, the path to host is Penn State needs to lose handily against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. At that point, Penn State would have what, 2 losses?
Yeah,
Um, obviously, that's more than IU's 1 loss, but losing at that point to what would be a 13-0 Oregon team, how far do they drop? If you're IU, you drop 5 spots for losing on the road. How much would you lose for losing a neutral site game? We'll still find out. So if Penn State drops a lot for losing handily in the Big Ten championship game, we'll see on Tuesday night here how far Ohio State falls for losing at home to Michigan, how much they get punished for that. We'll see. I could see them dropping. Will they drop below IU? Probably not, because they beat us head to head. I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I think that's fair.
SMU losing to Clemson. I think that's definitely something that could happen. SMU is 1 slot ahead of IU right now. Clemson probably then bumps into like the 11 ranking or 11 seed, which would actually let UNLV or Boise maybe be the 4, which would be kind of crazy. And then, yeah, if Georgia loses handily to Texas, which at that point they would have split between their two meetings. So we'll see again how they value that. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't see them really punishing the Georgias and the Penn States for losing in their conference championship games. Um, and obviously, if SMU beats Clemson, they're not going to fall below IU. So yeah, I think the path to host is an uphill one for Indiana. I think it's definitely there, but I think it will be telling how far Ohio State drops, and then we'll just have to wait and see how they value these conference championship games, especially for the losers. How much do they punish someone that loses a conference championship game?
Yeah, and I agree. I think it'd be a hard precedent to set, especially when you're trying to make part of this expansion to 12 teams was make sure that every game matters every bit more. So even in week 7, a
Mhm.
loss or a win can really change things. I think it's a hard precedent to set to say like, oh, we know all these games mattered, but then we're getting into the conference championship games, and those games matter a lot too. So a big result here could really shift things. I kind of hope it's not that way. Like if Indiana's a team that's in the future going to make it into these conference championship games, I would rather have the opportunity to win the Big Ten title, but not also have that risk of completely, dropping off the face of the earth in the
Yeah.
rankings. And then suddenly those conference championship games get completely devalued. And honestly, it becomes kind of a detriment to have to play in them. So I would agree with you. I'd expect after tomorrow night's rankings, probably not a ton of change unless there's just complete, complete chaos or someone gets completely blown out and looks different or we go back to last year's and a starting quarterback gets injured or something like that, and then you have to treat that team differently. Um, but really, yeah, I would expect after to tomorrow's night or to tomorrow night's show to kind of have an idea of where we would be slotted.
Yeah, and like the thing with the conference championship games, like especially Big Ten SEC, like all four of those teams are going to try to win that game. Like they're going to prepare and play hard. Like
Yeah,
getting a top 4 seed is way better than having to even host in the first round. Like you want to have an extra week to get ready, not play, rest up, watch tape on these two teams that are playing to see who you'll play. Like the teams are going to want one of those top 4 seeds. So like if you're Georgia and you beat Texas, like you're definitely going to jump into the top 4. If you're Penn State and you beat Oregon, you're definitely going to jump into the top 4.
yeah,
So like they are going to like definitely try to win these games. Like regardless of it doesn't really matter. All 4 of these teams are already in the playoff anyway. Like no, like I think they are really going to try to win these games to try to get one of those buys. Like I think for me that is way better than losing a really tough game or getting blown out and then having to play on a like short turn like that. Like I think teams are really going to try to win these games. So for people that are not going to put a lot of value in how they look against each other, I think should someone get knocked out of a playoff or the conference champion, I don't know. But at that point, like 12 teams, like how great are the teams on the bubble that you're picking from? Like I don't know, but we'll see. It's going to be fascinating, and I've been a kind of a hater on it. IU definitely will be in now, so I love it. I think it's one of the greatest inventions probably I've ever seen. Um, but yeah, it's going to be definitely fascinating to watch. But if I had to pick where we could play on the road, I would love to play in South Bend. Purdue or Notre Dame cannot get a top 4 seed because they will not be a conference champion. That's something they've agreed to. Um, but Notre Dame is super reliant on the run, and IU has the best run defense in the country. We saw USC throw the ball pretty well on Notre Dame this past weekend. Not that I'm predicting like IU would win that game or like I'm fiending to play Notre Dame, but I like just matchup wise, I think that is the kind of game that at least on paper IU probably matches up pretty well with if you're trying to come out with a win.
I also think if I agree with you. I was trying to rank them yesterday of those three that I've mentioned earlier of Georgia, Penn State, Notre Dame that I feel like are most likely. I ultimately came up with Notre Dame. The run defense is definitely part of it, but I also just kind of think like I think we would be their stiffest competition that they have faced in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And similar to when we went into Ohio State. Clearly, they're kind of on another level, but I I think there's a little bit of a difference when you're walking in and you're not playing Army or Navy or a Louisville or whatever. Even
Whoa,
USC,
whoa,
we've seen.
whoa, whoa! Even the best team of all time that would have definitely made the playoff if they
Oh
beat
yeah,
you. Yeah,
uh, yeah. Even USC, we've seen some Big Ten teams, handle USC relatively easily. I think we would be a tough test for them that they haven't necessarily seen for a lot of this season. And even those big games that we felt big for Notre Dame, they kind of look a lot smaller when you think about the grand scheme of someone that's going through the a Big Ten schedule, an SEC schedule, even Big 12 and ACC.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, Georgia on the road. I think that's a tough one for a lot of different reasons. If you're looking at probably just like most dudes per square yard or whatever you would make the official measurement, like Georgia's probably up
Dudes
there in
per
terms of
capita, I
dudes
think.
per
Yeah,
capita. Yeah, like in the DPC rating, like Georgia's probably up there with the Ohio States and maybe the Alabamas, maybe Texas this year. In terms of just recruits and athletes and body types, I think that's definitely a game that would be daunting. Um, Tennessee is interesting. They feel like boom or bust for me. I could see them making it to the national championship game. I could see them losing to a lot of different teams in the first round.
which,
Um,
yeah, when you have a freshman quarterback, and that's kind of what the roller coaster that you sign up for. But
yep.
yeah, their defensive line I would definitely fear against our offensive line because they've got dudes per capita.
Yeah.
DPC
Yeah.
definitely is heavy along their defensive line, but I would also like to see Nico against our defense because I do think we could give him fits
Yeah. Yeah, they fell down 17-0 at Vandy and then came roaring back. So it looked like they kind of got a little bit of their swagger back, but they were definitely beatable during the regular season.
for
Uh,
sure. Little
so
revenge
yeah,
from
I mean,
2020.
Penn State, yeah, a little revenge would be nice. Yeah, Penn State, I think they're super up and down. I think anemic on offense at times. Defense is always pretty solid. Storylines galore there, obviously, with Tom Allen calling the defense. That would be kind of fascinating to watch.
Yeah,
Um, if we knew anything, it would be poor tackling, blown coverages, and penalties. So that would benefit IU's offense if that matchup were to happen. Um, but yeah, I don't know. A lot of storylines. Also, like you could see a rematch in the horseshoe. Like honestly, based on where seeding falls, like that's a very realistic possibility. Um, but
I
again,
kind of
it's
think they lean away from rematches.
yeah, I would
I
think so too. It's
Again, we have nothing to base this off of,
yeah,
but I
vibes.
would I would imagine that they are trying to avoid that, but yeah, I'm not going to put it past them at this point.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing that will be really interesting is I think there are a couple scenarios where you could pit Big Ten teams and SEC teams against each other. It's like SEC versus SEC and Big Ten versus Big Ten in the first round, almost as like de facto play-in games. Do they do that? Do they do Big Ten versus SEC? Because at the end of the day, whatever the rankings say, they'll definitely mess with them these last 2 weeks to get the matchups on TV that they want and for the
Yeah, for sure.
storylines. So, are you going to see SEC versus SEC? Are you going to spread them out? We'll see. I think the chair of the selection committee, being a Big Ten guy, hopefully plays a little bit into Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and IU's favor here. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath
What's
to the Michigan
what's our
guys.
best storyline? If you're the TV producer, you're trying to place Indiana with the absolute best storyline among
For
those
us or
teams.
for the playoff? I think the best storyline for them is they send us to Athens and we lose by 50 because then they get what they want and everybody could go, haha, we told you. Um, I guess storyline from like a matchup game perspective, I think the Notre Dame one is super interesting. Obviously, in state, haven't played in a long time. Notre Dame really hasn't been tested. Like, I bet you'd get a lot of red at that game. So that'd be super interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so that's obviously one. I think going against Allen, which I kind of just talked about, is another one. And then the Tennessee revenge game, I think, is the other one. I don't think there's a scenario in which Bama hosts, or if we host Bama, like a couple weeks ago, that was kind of slotted in that way. The
Yeah.
Bama IU thing is a big thing with DeBoer and Womack and Sheridan and all that stuff. But So there's a lot of them, I think.
Yeah.
All we know is we will have a storyline. Like, we're going to be in. Some of the sports books have pulled like bets for IU to make the playoff, like off their book, which again, Vegas knows best. Like, they always know, it seems, ahead of everybody else. So I think that's a pretty
Yeah.
telltale sign.
Why do we play the games?
Right. Yeah. Just let Vegas pick the playoff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's a lot of interesting storylines, but either way, it's going to be something that we'll remember hopefully for a long time. So, Nate, kind of final thoughts here. We'll have a ton of stuff, like I said, tomorrow when the rankings come out. Portal opens this week. I'm sure we'll have some action there and some rumors and some visits, all that good stuff. And then we'll kind of see how conference championship weekend shapes out and where IU lands. But Nate, final thoughts. IU beats Purdue 66-0. Get the bucket back. The spittoon's back. 8-0 at home. What a regular season.
Yeah, just an absolutely incredible season. Better than we all could have imagined. I think even in our highest projections going into the season, we were like, I think I'm kind of drinking the Kool-Aid here. Like I could see 8-4 happening, and that would have been the bottom falling out. Looking back at things now, so it is incredible to see that we are 11-1 talking about college football playoff and not just talking about it as people who enjoy college football, but people who enjoy college football and root for the Indiana Hoosiers are talking about it and making plans to head wherever they go to go cheer them on. So awesome season, and it's always great to put a little punctuation mark or on Purdue to cap things off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it there. I honestly, like, obviously I don't play. I have no impact on the game unless I'm a couple Shalubies, sloppy loggers deep yelling in the stands, which I've been known to do. Yeah, I don't think it's really like set in for me yet that we just went 11-1 and are ranked 9th in the country in both polls right now, are going to make the college football playoff. Like, none of these things are like registering in my brain. And I'll be the first to admit, like, sometimes things just don't register in my brain. But yeah, I mean, what a ride. Like, means a lot to me personally. Like, Indiana football is my favorite, like, team, regardless of sport or pro versus got, like, whatever. Like, and everyone that is always like, how would you divvy up all of the championships if you had to pick like 5 championships for your lifetime? I'd probably pick 5 IU football natties, honestly, which I think puts me in like a rare class of human. But yeah, like, really, really special season. It was awesome for me. I got to share a lot of the games with you, Nate. I got to share a lot of the games with a lot of people that watched some really bad IU football with me. I got to experience games with people that like made fun of me for caring or said, why are you going to the game? Who cares? What's the point? Basketball starts in a month. Like, I got to experience games with those people. So it was fun to, look at them a little differently. Got to experience games with my family. Got to take my girlfriend to her first couple games. Got to experience it in Chicago. Like, just awesome stuff this year. We'll see where it shakes out. I'm going to make every plan, and it's my intention to be wherever IU plays in a couple weeks here. But yeah, really, really special. And I think for us, like, as a site, Sammy and TJ, who you guys all know, started Hoosier Huddle a long time ago, honestly. And we've kind of prided ourselves on being, it's in our like Twitter bio and on the website, like, all Indiana football all the time, nothing else. We'll occasionally talk about the other teams and what's going on, but this is it. This is what we do. This is our passion. This is the thing we all love and all appreciate. So it's been really special for all of us. We've had a ton of growth on the site and on social, and people watching this on YouTube and listening to the podcast. Like, that's been really great. It means a lot. Like, we were doing this. We used to do live streams on Twitter, and we would have literally like 9 people watch our halftime shows or our post-game shows.
Shout out to our parents.
That's right. Yeah. I would log in on, burner Twitter accounts to be like, oh, not really, but
doing absolute numbies.
Yeah, like crazy. People are commenting like that this Alex guy's awesome on the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been really special. So for everyone that has listened, whether you've listened every week or read an article on the site or liked a tweet on Twitter, honestly means a lot. Like we all have other jobs and other things we do, but like IU football is our thing, and this is what we like to do. So that has meant a lot, and what a season to share. Honestly, it's been really just a treat. And honestly, I'm sad the regular season's over, but for the first time in a long time, we have something else to look forward to. I'm really excited for that. So
Yeah, there are a lot of years that we were desperately waiting to get to December and just, crawling to the finish line, kind of excited for it to end. And it's so nice to not even have the season ending really like on my mind right now. Like this, I wanted to just keep on going. I am enjoying every moment of this, and yeah, it's been awesome. And if you are too, hit subscribe, like our videos, follow us on social media if you don't, because we're all Indiana football all the time.
yep, and we use all the proceeds like drinks on us at Shalubi's. That's what, yeah. But Nate, thanks for joining tonight. That's all for this episode of After the Dust Settles. Like I talked about a couple times, lots and lots of stuff coming to the site in the next week and a half, 2 weeks here. We'll have reactions to college football playoff rankings tomorrow. Signing day is on Wednesday, so we're right now expecting all of the high school commits to sign here. Portal opens. There's going to be lots of rumors and portal talk, all that good stuff. And we'll have kind of tons of stuff as IU gets ready to play in the college football playoff. So, Nate, thanks for joining me. Everybody, thanks for listening, and hope you have a great rest of your week.